Hey guys, welcome back to our weekly Bible study. So glad you chose to be with us today. I'm John Evans. This is Gabe Ross.
Hey.
We are in week 15.
That's right, out of 900.
Goodness gracious, as we walk through this Move of God series. And so this week, we're going to take just a few minutes to look at this idea of Saul, as he's been called, and kind of this idea of what he did as he's younger in the faith, then as he matures in the faith, who played a role in that, how we should apply that to our lives. And so a little bit of a practical approach to how to look at the scripture this week. So as we've done every week, I'm going to get Gabe to just give us a broad overview of what the sermon was. And then we're going to dive into three things that I think it'll take us a little while to dive through and to talk through today, but I think is really important to the life of a believer. So give us a broad overview first.
Yeah, so the title, I didn't do a really catchy title. I did that when I was younger, I don't do that as much anymore. So
That happens.
The title was just simply Many Days.
Yeah.
And it came from, the very beginning of that where it says, after many days, Saul did these things. And
Right.
so there's that, I don't want to say hidden because it's not necessarily hidden, but, anytime you have a biography or history about something, not every detail's there,
Right.
but there are things that are left out on purpose, and then there are clues to things that were not talked about.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit of a clue there that, okay, what happened and how long were those days? How many were those days? What did he do during those days? But there is a gap there between when he was converted and when he became a leader within the church.
Yeah.
Not a disciple or a follower, which we'll talk about. He obviously did those things and actually preached the gospel in those days. But it wasn't until 3 years later that he became really a leader and a voice globally for the church. So really want to talk through the idea as young leaders, what that looks like. Whether you're young in the faith, you're young as a leader, you're young in a new idea. Because all of us, as soon as we get knowledge of something, or as soon as we become passionate about something, we just become this voice, a megaphone that sometimes is annoying.
Right.
We all did it.
Yeah,
It's not that...
Sure.
I'm older and I'm better and wiser now. I look back and I cringe at my 21-year-old self and man, I was arrogant, conceited, and thought I knew everything. And so we just kind of walk through what that looked like and what that looks like for new believers and young leaders in church, community, whatever arena that might be, and what that looks like and maybe how to do that gracefully.
Yeah.
And then what the role of the older, wiser people are in the life of those young people as well.
Right. Yeah, because you mentioned it and you referred to it just in passing, but when you think about back to when we were first converted, like you have this passion, this zeal about you, right? I mean, it's like I'll run through a wall for Jesus. If he calls me to go to Uganda, I'll go, right? I mean, we have just this idea like we're willing to do anything. And so that can easily transform into, I know what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
I don't need any training. I don't need anybody. But you made this point Sunday that before Paul became a leader, he became a listener.
Yeah.
And we don't know the exact time, right, that he spent before, his conversion to this time that he was fully evolved in his faith and he was, out preaching the gospel and planting churches, right? Mm-hmm. But we do know that there was a span of time, right? And so talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about how important it is to spend some time learning prior to stepping out and trying to lead.
Yeah, so, he mentioned in Galatians 1 that he'd gone away for 3 years, and he was in Damascus for a little bit, went away to Arabia, and then came to Jerusalem. And so you don't expect him to not preach. Mm-hmm. There's evidence that he probably did, and more than likely did.
Right.
Went to the Gentiles, preached in synagogues. So what I don't want the young leaders to hear is you just have to put a muzzle on, you can't do anything for 3 years.
Yeah,
That's not
sure.
the truth.
Right.
That's not the case. I was an intern, you probably were an intern at one point, and we did the grunt things, the things that nobody wants to do. And, you bring back in a little bit of Mr. Miyagi.
Mm-hmm.
But Jesus did the same thing with his disciples, gave them small little tasks, small little things to do, evaluated, taught, trained. And so I do think it's interesting that Saul went away, and he learned the scripture, understood really, he knew the Old Testament, but didn't know it in the way that it pointed to Jesus. So he's more than likely going back through and recounting all of that and making sense of where he leaned on religion to now that it really points to the sacrifice of Jesus, not the works and sacrifice of man.
Right.
So he's working through all that, and he writes to that effect, through the rest of the New Testament.
Yeah.
Romans is filled with the outworking of what religion means and really what the new covenant in Jesus means.
Right.
So he's working through all that, and he knows it, but he doesn't know it in the right context, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for us to sit back and listen. Everybody wants to be a leader. So to learn, to grow, to be under the feet of those who are smarter and wiser than us, and just to listen more than we speak. And I don't want that passion to dissipate. I don't want that to not, like, we have some young guys who are doing some great things and young girls who are doing some great things. I don't want to take that passion away. And I don't want to say, hey, wait 10 years, it'll go away. That's not what you want. It's be careful with that passion that you're not overstepping what you know, overstepping your knowledge and the wisdom. Because sometimes you can be right in something, but how it's applied makes it completely wrong. And you don't get that until you have experience and wisdom. And so that's difficult to wrap your head around. But I think it's wise to consider it.
Yeah, and that's really important what you just said. Like, you may have the knowledge, but how you present it, could be detrimental to the message itself. Right? And so you talked a little bit about that, and you said, when we're young, we have this, this passion, this drive, and sometimes it can come across as so much confidence that it becomes cocky, right? And so you made this quote Sunday, and I actually misinterpreted what you said.
I think half the people did,
and I posted it, right? So that made it worse. But what you actually said was, character is greater than competence.
Correct.
What I heard and I posted was, character is always greater than confidence.
Both are correct.
All right, so talk about that. All right, talk about how both can be right, because that post got a lot of traction, by the way. Thank you to all who liked that or whatever. But it got a little bit of traction. But just talk about how that's applicable in both situations, and then talk about how important it is to pump the brakes a little bit. Like, again, we just talked about, like, learning, listening, sitting at the feet of those that are wiser than you, but also how to just pump the brakes. Don't just trust that you know everything. Right. And again, like you said, I want to be very clear. Like, we got these young guys and young girls right now that are on fire for Jesus, that are doing some things that are really, really cool. And we love to see that. But you also have to do it in a spirit of humility. In a way that you know that you're still learning, you're still developing your theology, you're still developing in the faith, and so you have to just be slow in that and methodical in that approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with competence, since that was the one I intended. And that's a common phrase, character greater than competence. It just says that who you are is more important than what you know or what you can accomplish. And there's debate about that. You go look in the world and you say, well, Steve Jobs, look all he accomplished. And it changed the world. But then you look at his family, did it really change his family? And so you can debate on that. Some people say, no, that competence is greater. But biblically, spiritually, your character, who you are, and the fruit of the Spirit, that really is the definition of a successful disciple or a growing disciple, maturing disciple. And none of those are about the things you accomplished. They're really about who you're becoming. And those things matter more than the things that you know. The things that you know, they're going to come. They're going to happen. You're going to learn those things. But if you're a terrible person and you can accomplish great things, nobody wants to be around you. And really, when you boil everything down, at the end of your life, what do you want? Do you want all the stuff or all the people? You want the people. You just forget about it in the pursuit of success. And then I'll go to confidence. So 1 Timothy 3 says, don't let them be a new convert. Because if they are, they'll be puffed up. Look what I've done. Look how I've arrived. And it builds this self-serving confidence that really doesn't have a basis to withstand the difficult things in life. And that verse finishes, he'll fall to the deceitfulness of the devil. So you get this air and arrogance about you. Look what I know. Look what I've done. But you don't have that foundation, because storms are going to come. Storms are going to happen. I remember telling a young guy who's probably more intellectual than I am, I said, wait till you get a real job. Wait till you do your own laundry. Wait till you get married and have kids. And then come back and talk to me. And that doesn't mean let the passion go away. That just says things are going to adjust and change. You'll learn some things. You'll understand some things. You'll have wisdom about some things. And so confidence and competence are important. But if they outpace character, we've seen it 1,000 times. They fall away.
Yeah.
After 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, it falls away. And
Right.
what remains, and I hate to boil it down to this, but you go back to the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
Like the hare takes off and look what I've done. Look at
yeah.
all these things, and then gets distracted by all this stuff
Right.
because, well, I can do this and I can do that. And the tortoise just slowly, methodically making
Right.
its way along.
Right.
And I think that's the same thing about, Scripture says, live a calm, peaceful life with everyone as much as you can.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean don't do great things, but be careful who you are and who you're becoming. And let me say this as well. When we were that age and we got this wisdom and knowledge, we thought, I can do it better than everybody else.
Yep.
I can do it better than the people that taught me. I can do it better than my mentors. I can do it better than my parents. And you might
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah.
But you're not going to right now. And
Right.
so there is this temptation, and we've seen it. We did it, and we've seen it. We've had several people within our ministry and my ministry over the last 20 years that I've discipled and mentored, people who feel like they have just enough confidence and competence that they take off.
Yeah.
And we don't want to withhold anybody. One of our passions is to send people out.
Yep.
And we never want to hold people back, but we want to make sure we prepare people
Right.
so that when you go, you're ready to withstand those things. I can't tell you how many people have come back and said, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I wish I'd done this, or it didn't turn out the way I thought it
Yeah.
would. And I could have said, I could have told you
Yeah.
that. And I've even had people say, hey, I've said, give me a year, and I will build those things into you. And they didn't, and they bolted, and then they jumped to somewhere else, and then they jumped. And this didn't happen recently. This happened over the course of 20 years.
Right. Right.
But it is the temptation.
yeah.
Well, I can change the world. Look what I've done.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit under somebody anymore. Look, I'm 47, about to be 48. I still sit under people all the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
listening to books, podcasts, learning. And I don't think you're ever going to outgrow that. That's why I think it's important. Saul was a learner before he was a teacher, really. He was a listener and a student before he was a leader.
Right. And the temptation there is real.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the temptation
Absolutely.
burns deep there because we feel like we know just enough. We feel like we can be world changers. We feel like we can be difference makers. And if an opportunity arises, right, our immediate response is yes.
Yeah. Yep.
No matter what it is,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
And, a lot of times the temptation is not to really seek the Lord there, but to
Right.
seek our own desires and our passions there. And we run into a situation that is not right. That will burn us.
Yep.
And what happens a lot of times, and you've seen this, I've seen this in my ministry, what happens a lot of times is when you have younger people who pursue that route,
Right.
who they take these opportunities just because they're opportunities.
Right.
It happens where it doesn't work out, so they go to another opportunity, and it doesn't work out, and they go to another opportunity, and very, very soon they become burnout in ministry in general. And you'll see those guys 10 years down the road that are no longer in ministry because they have been burned so many times. And that's simply a result of you chased after the wrong opportunity because you weren't willing to be patient and wait.
Yeah. I tell you, so when we came here, we've been here almost 11 years now, and I was coming out of student ministry, and I went through a desert season, about 3 years. God just really, and it's odd that it's 3 years for Saul too. There's something about 3. We're going to talk about Peter and 3 times this week. Just of God really working some things in me, but here's the thing. Just as much as you have that wisdom and knowledge, I think before you become a really good leader, God has to work things out of you.
Yeah.
And you process all this information, you gain all this knowledge, and the hard part is to discern what really is helpful and what's not.
Right.
And at that young age, you can't really process that and discern that. And so we went through a phase where we wanted to be at the right place.
Yeah.
We didn't want to go anywhere else for money. We didn't want to go anywhere else for position. I was going from youth pastor to lead pastor. Could have had more money somewhere else. Could have had more power somewhere else. I didn't want to be at a place that wasn't a good fit for me. And it took 3 years for God to work stuff out of me for me to come to that place where I was accepting of that.
Yeah.
If I had jumped in those 3 years previous, I would have gone to something else, and I wouldn't have been fulfilled or happy. I would have had more money, more position, more power, more status, but I wouldn't have been satisfied, and I wouldn't have been fulfilled. And so I think it is that allure to jump to a position. And when you jump to other places, you know what we do is we think, well, that wasn't right, they weren't right, that wasn't right, when we were the one that was in all those situations. So it really was we didn't we didn't give ourselves and submit ourselves to God in the process and the people long enough for God to work in us and out of us to prepare us.
Yeah, and I would say, that's an ongoing process.
Oh, for sure.
Right? I mean, that's something that never ends. At 45 years old, almost 46 years old, I still have to be very cautious of things like that because opportunity comes all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just quick example, I've been in this position as executive pastor here at Life Point for about a year. At the time, I got a call from a church in Kentucky. I watched our online services, loved my preaching style, and wanted to talk to me. I'd been in this position for a year.
Yeah.
Like, it can happen. Like, God can move us whenever he wants to, but, like, it's a stretch to say, well, you've been in that position for a year. I called you there. Now I'm going to move you.
Right.
And so it would have been really easy to uproot and move to Bowling Green, Kentucky at a thriving church that had no debt and, was 500 people.
Yep.
But that wasn't where God was calling me.
Yeah.
The allure of that, says go.
Yeah.
Heard somebody say one time, Jesus is everywhere, go where the money is, right? I see his point, but at the same time, like, you have to be discerning in those moments because that can lead to heartache. It can lead to you being burned and ultimately being burnt out in ministry.
Absolutely. We want to prepare people and send them out. They can all go. You can't. You got to stay.
We'll see. All right. So this last point I want to bring up is you talked about the responsibility of the older generation to pour in to the new. And I wanted to say this in the wrap-up Sunday just because they went into that last song and just, man, the Lord's just working in my spirit. I couldn't. But I wanted to say your responsibility never ends. As a member of the church, your responsibility never ends. It's either you are learning or you're teaching.
Yeah.
And you should never be, you should never not be poured into, and you should never not be pouring out. Yeah. So even these young guys that we were talking about earlier, like right now they're doing a great job of ministering to college-age, career-age kids, and even to our students right now. Right. And really that's well and good. That's what it's supposed to be. Right. But a lot of times the older generation says, I've done my job. I've served in the capacity I was called to. I'm 55 years old, 60 years old. It's time for me to rest. No. Yeah. So talk about that. Talk about the responsibility of the older.
Okay, so it's a little bit all-encompassing. So God gives us spiritual gifts, and we're to use those gifts, right? And we're to use those any season, any stage, any time. They are a gift to us to use, and that's where we typically land.
Yeah.
I have this gift. God's given me this gift. What we don't talk about enough probably, and we don't want it to come across wrong, you are a gift to the church.
Yeah.
And that could come across a little bit, heretical maybe, but you are a gift to the church. So we have flipped it to be we're a consumer of everything.
Yeah.
I'll go and I'll come and even if you come with good intentions, and you come with lowering your preferences. I don't like the music, but I'll endure it or whatever. You're a gift. And I say the same thing about community group. Like, if you don't want to show up at community group, well, I get it. You're tired or had a long day. Like, we got 7 kids. I understand.
Yeah.
But you not being there, it's not about you getting out. It may be you being a gift to whoever needs you to be there.
Right.
And that's a part of the body. That's a gift. Like, if my arm decides not to work today, well, I'm going to suffer. And Paul talks about that.
Yeah.
That's a gift to me for me to be able to use. And so I think, and I would love for church people, Christians, believers, disciples to hear this, you are a gift to that body, which means you show up, and we're not talking about perfect attendance, but you show up, not just in person, but in gifting and leadership and compassion and mercy. And so whatever stage you are, God doesn't say, hey, you have this gift for a season. You have this gift for life.
Yeah.
You're to nurture it, cultivate it. You're to grow it, and then you're to use it. And that means to be there, to be present. It can't be used if it's absent.
Right.
You give your kid a gift and say, I'm going to keep it with me in my room, but one day a week you can have it. That's not much of a gift.
Right.
But it's there. It's a present that you give, but it's also present in their life. And so even if you think you have a little to give, Jesus took the disciples outside the temple and said, hey, look at this lady.
Yeah.
She gave everything.
Right.
And it was a little.
Right.
But it was all she had. It was what she was supposed to. So I would say quit viewing your gifts as less than. Quit viewing your attendance as consumerism. Remove your lack of knowledge and just be there.
Yeah.
Be present.
Yeah.
Give what you have.
Right.
What you give may not be everything that person needs, and it's not going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had 50 mentors,
Right.
Some directly, some indirectly, some in person, some in the distance, and I've taken and gleaned things from all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the body needs you to be there.
Right.
Even if you say, hey, all I know how to do is run a house
Mm-hmm.
and be hospitable. Great. That's what that person needs, especially the younger people. They need that to pour into it as they see a crazy busy life, but they see this woman who knows how to care and nurture her family and lead a household in the way of making sure everything operates well and able to host and make people feel welcome into their home. That's something that is rare and you think is not very usable. It's massive. It may be that thing that person needs. And so whatever gift it is, I wish we would switch and say, well, I'm going to go and get today. But no, I'm going to go give.
Yeah.
And giving is going to be serving, but it's also going to be present.
Right.
I'm going to be around. And whatever is needed, I'm going to give my 2 mites. I'm going to give my penny.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be there and be present. So the older generation, I know we think, well, we're washed up and you may not be on stage anymore. You may not be in front of people teaching. But the wisdom, the knowledge that you have that is lacking in the younger and even in the middle-aged, it's gold.
Sure.
It is stuff that we need to know, and you can't learn that from a textbook.
Yeah.
You have to learn that by being close to and hearing those stories.
Right.
And you can't share those stories if you're not around.
Sure. No, and a lot of times our excuse is, or the older generation's excuse is, well, I don't have formal training.
Yeah.
Or I haven't been to seminary. Or, I mean, look, experience is the greatest teacher, right? And when you are 55, 60 years old, you've had a lot of experience. And so you can speak those things into this younger generation, which is a great developer of character and ultimately of the follower of Jesus. That's helping them become more and more like Jesus because they're going to see the things in you. And you're going to convey those things to them. And then ultimately they're going to learn that's what it's like and what it's supposed to be like to follow Jesus.
Yeah. So, I mean, you go to the disciples, they didn't know much.
Right.
They were the least of all the educated people.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a book this morning. I think it was Benjamin Franklin. He dropped out of school to work in a family business at 10 years old.
Right.
So he wasn't skilled intellectually, educationally, but, I mean, look at all the things he did. He was the first Renaissance man in all of America.
Yeah.
So you take those two instances, it's not about schooling or intellect. It's about wisdom and character. That's really what it's about.
Yep, 100%. Well, that's good stuff. I mean, if you can't get something out of that, we got issues. But we hope that you did. And, that's something that we desire here at Light Point. We want to see continuous development in our people. We want to see older people speaking into younger people, and then ultimately those younger people growing to speak into the younger generation. I mean, that's just a cyclical thing that it should exist in the life of the church. And so we really hope that spoke to you this morning or this afternoon or this evening, whenever you're listening to this, and that you were able to glean something from that, take away from that. We're so glad you guys joined us today. We're here every Thursday, 5 o'clock, and we hope that you choose to join us. We can't wait to see you back on campus this Sunday at 9 and 10:45. You guys have a great day.